Tyler Hadley, a 17-year-old from Port St. Lucie, Florida, shocked the world on July 16, 2011, when he brutally murdered his parents, Blake Hadley, 54, and Mary-Jo Hadley, 47, with a claw hammer in their family home. After bludgeoning them to death, he hid their bodies in a bedroom, cleaned up the blood, and threw a wild house party with dozens of teens, all while his parents' corpses lay just feet away. He was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. In this documentary, we'll dive deep into the psychological and psychoanalytic forces behind Hadley's horrific crimes, unraveling what turned a troubled teen into a cold-blooded killer. Why zero in on Tyler Hadley's case? Because it's a psychological nightmare, a chilling glimpse into a teenage mind that snapped in the most horrifying way. His crimes weren't just brutal. They were bizarrely performative, a twisted mix of rage and attachment that makes his case a goldmine for understanding the psyche of a young killer. Picture this: a suburban home, quiet and unassuming, where a 17-year-old stands behind his mother as she types at her computer. Without warning, he swings a 17-inch framing hammer, smashing her skull with 36 blows, blood splattering the walls. When his father rushes in, Hadley turns on him, striking with feral intensity until both lie dead. Then he drags their bodies to the master bedroom, piles books, towels, and furniture over them, and invites 60 kids to party. The sheer audacity, killing, cleaning, then celebrating, screams for a psychological autopsy. That's why we're here, to dissect what drove this teen to such depravity. Let's rewind to Tyler Hadley's beginnings, to a life that looked normal on the surface, but it cracks deep enough to breed a monster. Born December 16, 1993, in Port St. Lucie, Florida, Tyler grew up in a middle-class family with parents who seemed devoted. Blake, a power company worker, and Mary-Jo, a beloved elementary school teacher. But beneath the picket fence facade, Tyler was unraveling. By his mid-teens, he was drowning in anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem, conditions his parents tried to address with therapy and outpatient programs. He dropped out of Port St. Lucie High School, dabbled at Indian River State College, and spiraled into drug use, marijuana, Xanax, oxycodone, and ecstasy. His rap sheet was growing too: arson, vandalism, theft, and a hit-and-run that injured child. Psychologically, Tyler's early life screams of unaddressed emotional turmoil. Anxiety and depression in teens often stem from a mix of genetic predisposition and environmental stress. Tyler's parents, desperate to rein him in, grounded him and pushed for drug treatment, which he resented deeply. Psychoanalytically, this resentment could point to an unresolved Oedipal conflict, a subconscious rage against parental authority, especially his mother, who he saw as controlling. His drug use wasn't just rebellion. It was self-medication, a way to numb the emotional pain that was festering into something darker. Experts might diagnose him with borderline personality disorder, marked by impulsivity, unstable emotions, and a fragile sense of self. Or perhaps conduct disorder, a precursor to antisocial personality disorder, given his escalating criminal behavior. Whatever the label, Tyler was a ticking time bomb, his psyche a battlefield of rage and despair. What pushes a kid to murder his own parents? For Tyler, it wasn't a snap decision. It was a plan that started as a sick joke. Weeks before July 16, 2011, he told friends he wanted to kill his parents, even joking about throwing a party afterward because it's never been done before. Nobody took him seriously. They thought he was just venting. But in his mind, the idea took root, growing into an obsession. Psychologists call this catathymia, a state where intrusive, violent thoughts become a desperate solution to emotional distress. Tyler later told Court TV, "I would sit there and think about it. I latched onto it and didn't let go." The thought of killing became his escape from the pain of his parents' discipline, their push for rehab, and his own self-loathing. That Saturday, Tyler's rage boiled over. He took 3 ecstasy pills to steel himself, a move suggesting he needed to dull his conscience to act. Ecstasy floods the brain with serotonin, creating euphoria but also impulsivity, which likely amplified his resolve. Standing behind Mary-Jo as she worked at the computer, he raised the hammer. She didn't see it coming 36 blows later. Her skull was shattered, blood pooling on the floor. Blake, alerted by the noise, rushed in and met the same fate, dozens of strikes to his head and body. Tyler later recalled his mother asking why as he struck, a moment that haunts him in nightmares. This wasn't just murder. It was an explosion of pent-up fury, a psychological release of years of perceived depression. His parents, in his mind, were the source of his pain. Killing them was his twisted path to freedom. Why his parents? Tyler's choice wasn't random. It was deeply personal. In his warped perception, Blake and Mary-Jo were the architects of his misery. They grounded him, confiscated his phone, and pushed for drug treatment, which he saw as suffocating control. Psychoanalytically, this points to projection. Tyler externalized his self-hatred onto his parents, blaming them for his failures. His mother, in particular, was a symbol of authority. Her role as a teacher and disciplinarian made her a prime target for his rage. His father, who tried to protect Mary-Jo, became collateral damage in Tyler's mind, a secondary obstacle to his freedom. This dynamic mirrors parricide cases where teens, feeling trapped, lash out to figures closest to them. Tyler's fixation on his parents also suggests a distorted attachment. In healthy families, parents are a source of security. For Tyler, they were a prison. His history of mental health issues, documented by a receipt for a mental health center and antidepressant prescriptions, hints at a mind unable to cope with their expectations. He didn't choose strangers. He chose the people who knew him best, making betrayal all the more chilling. As he told a psychologist in 2018, he wished he'd known them as real people, not just mom and dad. This regret suggests a flicker of humanity, but at 17, his rage drowned it out. The murders were savage, a frenzy of violence that paints a grim picture of Tyler's state of mind. Picture the scene, a quiet suburban home, the hum of a computer, Mary-Jo typing unaware. Tyler, high on ecstasy, grips the claw hammer, its weight heavy in his hand. He swings once, twice, then 36 times, each blow a release of rage, blood spraying across the room. Mary-Jo's skull fractures, her body slumps. Blake bursts in, eyes wide with shock, only to face the same fate, dozens of blows, the hammer's claw tearing flesh. Tyler later described feeling his face contracting in a maniacal rage, a detachment that psychologists link to catatonic violence, where the act becomes a trance-like purge of emotion. After the killings, Tyler's actions were eerily methodical. He dragged the bodies to the master bedroom, piling books, towels, and furniture over them to hide his crime. He cleaned the blood-soaked floor for 3 hours, then posted on Facebook. "Party at my house, Mew." The hammer, still bloody, lay between his parents' bodies, a grim signature. This blend of frenzy and calculation points to a dissociated state, common in ASPD or psychopathy, where empathy shuts off and the killer operates like a machine. Partygoers later reported an odd smell, blood on the walls, but Tyler partied on, laughing, even taking a selfie with his friend Michael Mandel. His behavior screams of narcissistic grandiosity, as if the murders were a performance and the party a stage. The party was Tyler's twisted victory lap, but it was also his downfall. Around 60 teens packed the house, drinking, smoking, playing beer pong, oblivious of the horror behind a locked bedroom door. Michael Mandel, Tyler's best friend, was the first to suspect something was wrong. During a walk, Tyler confessed, saying he'd killed his parents. Mandel didn't believe him until he saw a bloody shoe print in the garage and later, the bodies under a pile of debris. "It makes me feel sick," Mandel told police, describing how Tyler showed him the proof. Yet, chillingly, Mandel stayed at the party for hours, even taking a selfie with Tyler before calling Crime Stoppers at 4:24 a.m. on July 17th. Police arrived at a chaotic scene, beer bottles everywhere, furniture tossed, blood on the walls. Tyler, frantic and talkative, claimed his parents were out of town, but his nervous demeanor gave him away. Officers forced open the bedroom door, finding Blake and Mary-Jo's bodies, the hammer between them. The New York Times reported a neighbor, Kimberly Theben, saying Tyler seemed normal, happy at the party, even joking about going away for 60 years. This detachment, this ability to party amidst his parents' corpses, points to a profound lack of empathy, a hallmark of psychopathy. The community was stunned, Mary-Jo was a beloved teacher, Blake a respected worker. How could their son do this? Tyler's arrest came swiftly after Mandel's tip. Police took him into custody early on July 17, 2011, charging him with 2 counts of second-degree murder, later upgraded to first degree. He pleaded no contest in 2014, avoiding a trial but facing life without parole. In 2016, his sentence was overturned due to the Supreme Court's Miller v. Alabama ruling, which banned mandatory life without parole for juveniles. Resentenced in 2018, Tyler got life again, but with a review after 25 years. He's now at Century Correctional Institution, still grappling with his actions. In a 2018 interview, he apologized, saying, "I still don't understand myself. There is no excuse." But in jail, he'd sign autographs as Hammer Boy, a chilling nod to his infamy. What does Tyler Hadley's story mean? Philosophically, it's a gut punch, forcing us to wrestle with the nature of choice and evil. Existentialists like Sartre would say Tyler's freedom to act made him fully responsible. He chose to let those intrusive thoughts win, to swing that hammer. Yet, a deterministic view might argue his troubled youth, mental health struggles, and drug use set him on an inevitable path. His case raises haunting questions. Was he a monster by nature, or did society fail him, his parents' discipline, the lack of effective intervention? His regret, voiced years later, suggests a flicker of humanity, but his laughter after the murders, his party, points to a chilling void. Tyler's story is a mirror, reflecting our fear of what lurks in the mind of those closest to us, and a warning. Unchecked pain can turn a teen into a killer.